Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
I guess before the Recology, what have you, did you have any incidents of problems with workplace racism prior to getting to Recology?
Yes, I did, actually. I had an issue with, when I was working in construction, I've been in construction for roughly since maybe about 2000. The year 2000, I've been in construction. I've worked on the San Francisco airport. I've also worked on the 3rd Street Light Rail, which is the SFMTA project. And I would see nooses hanging in the back of pickup trucks, work trucks. I remember one incident I saw a white supervisor driving down the street, and he had a stuffed gorilla with a noose around his neck hanging in his back window. And at this point, I kind of got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. You know, being called nigger and being called this, or not really being called personally, but hearing them speak of others that way or making jokes. And I just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I had to approach the supervisor, and I explained to him that, you know, basically this behavior was not acceptable. Of course, you know, anytime you speak up against something that somebody else is doing, whether they take it as a joke or if they take it as if they are actually trying to push someone's buttons, it's always going to cause some form of an issue, and that's what it actually did. I was actually moved to a whole other site at that time to get away from, you know, this supervisor or whatever, but I looked at it as being punishment. It wasn't, you know, trying to tone down a problem. It was basically punishment. So, you know, pretty much for a long time here in San Francisco, I've been dealing with workplace racism, discrimination, and hate, you know, towards black people.
Wow. Just quick one, since Planet of the Apes did come out, the latest installment did come out last week. We were talking about that, just tossing that in. Also, did you have any suspicion before you got there? Did you have a suspicion of white people with regards to thinking, I need to be on my guard, they might try to practice racism against me, I really need to be cautious around white people on the job? Did you think that way before you got to Recology?
Oh, of course, always. That's part of the reason why, you know, I always would work extra hard when I'm at any job, because of the fact that, you know, at any time something could happen in terms of a disciplinary action because I'm not working as up to par which they may think I should be working up to, which I'm really working and being productive, you know, based off of what I should be doing, what everybody else is doing. But I would have to work extra hard because of that. Also, you know, just what I've experienced before. You know, so when you have that experience, it's like, you know, being burned by fire. You always know that it exists, you know. So, of course, definitely, you know, I always knew I had to be careful. I always knew that, you know, be watchful, you know, make sure that you don't do anything wrong. You can't be, you know, go against, you know, sometimes can't go against people. You know, there's two incidents at Recology, not just the one. There's one when I was a driver also, but I don't know how, you know, maybe we can get into that a little later. But there were two incidents of racism, you know, at Recology, and it kind of happened within different months. I was terminated from one position due to not being trained properly, and then brought back in a lesser, more entry-level position. And then that's when everything else happened with the news.
Wow. Absolutely. I want to hear that because that's another pattern, too, that we talked about. Just brought that up yesterday, in fact, in terms of black people not getting adequate training. But I guess the last one, did you, prior to Recology or really at any point in your working career, did you study workplace racism in terms of either information, reading material, lectures, videos, any type of material that is specifically designed for black people to help them counter workplace racism in terms of specific things to say, specific things to do, what to do if racism is practiced against you, how to deal with racist jokes? Like, did you have any sort of material like that?
No, sir, I haven't. And I that book that you mentioned, I think that I'm definitely going to make sure I get that and pass it on to as many people as I possibly can.
That is incredible. And I'm not talking about you specifically, Mr. Washington, just us black people in general. 2014, for the decades, because this is not new. I mean, the millions of black people that have encountered all sorts of terrorism on the job from white people. The fact that we don't have more literature and material resources that are specifically designed for black people to deal with racism on the job, that is something we seriously need to correct. If you're listening to this program and you feel like you need something to do, that's one right there, because there needs to be tons of material for black people, workplace racism, how to deal with it, geared towards children who are going into the labor force. Even if you're going to work for yourself, you're still going to have to deal with workplace racism because you're going to have to talk to white people directly, indirectly to get a business license, likely to get a loan, all sorts of other material. They have zoning restrictions and what have you. You're going to have to deal with white people at some level. Workplace racism, that is something that we are woefully deficient on. Hopefully we can compensate with that as we roll. When did you start working at Recology Corporation?
I actually started working there as a driver originally back in February of 2013.
2013, okay. And I guess when did things become a problem? Like, when did you have the first incident that you thought, this could be them practicing racism against me?
Well, the first issue was when I first started as a driver in February of last year. I went out on a training with a white individual he's an Italian, and first day we went out, you could tell he was the type of person that didn't really like to train. He didn't really know how to train, in my opinion, because I've trained people before. He didn't know how to train. We were driving around in certain areas around maybe the third or fourth day of training, which really wasn't a real training that they did give me, but nonetheless they called it and considered it training. We were driving by a place called West Side in the Fillmore district, and he referred to the residents over there and low-income housing over there as lowlifes. Later that day, we were picking up compost, so we were on a compost truck, so we were picking up compost, and we picked up compost for KPO, which is a black independent station in San Francisco. And we went in there, and he said that basically it was a station ran by monkeys, and it was basically a SHIT station. I mean, I was just like, wow. And I've actually done radio shows on this station before with a cousin of mine. So at that point, I questioned what he was referring to. Like, what are you talking about? This is a very good station. The station is, it helps people. It helps get, the word out, and it's a good station. It may not be, mainstream, but nonetheless, it's still a good station. Well, the next day or two, I got a bad basic write-up. I was told that I wasn't motivated enough on the job and that I probably most likely would not make it in the company, and which they have a 120-day probationary period, and I only made it up to 100. I didn't get to 120. They fired me at 100. When I was terminated, I went into the office, and for a duration of the time, I would explain to supervisors and also to dispatch supervisors that I wasn't being trained properly. They felt as if I was. After this day that I was terminated, I went into the office and I spoke to the operations manager, and I explained to him, a lot of the issues that I was having. They were saying to me that, no, well, we just want to think that this is a good cut for you. You know, it's not going to be a good cut for you. So I said, okay, I don't believe that, but I wasn't trained properly. No, we gave you a very extensive training. So nonetheless, I was terminated. I made a phone call to my union at the time, and the union made a phone call, and they actually tried to tell me that the reason I was fired was because I did have an accident where I tore off one of the tippers, which tips the cans into the truck. But I was told by the operations manager that I had nothing to worry about, because at the time of the accident, I contacted the operations manager, and I pretty much thought that I was going to be fired at that moment. He started laughing on the phone as if it was not a big deal. And I was kind of shocked, and I was like, well, okay, well, what does this mean? Am I terminated? He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. We expect you to have accidents. We expect you to, have little things like that happen. So I was like, okay, so I'm okay. So when the union rep explained to me that I was terminated possibly mainly due to the fact that I tore off a tipper, I had to fight my union rep on that and tell him, no, that can't be true. So in a little bit of investigation that my union rep did, he found out that it was because of my times was coming back too late. Now, they are, of course, being a professional driver, you have to report to the Department of Transportation. And, of course, you have certain times that you can be out on jobs and whatnot. Now, these jobs that I was out on, I wasn't trained properly on how to pick up the garbage and how to pick up the compost and pick up the cans. So, of course, I would do 15, 16-hour days. Easy, with no breaks, no lunch. I barely even have time to use the bathroom. I have to use the bathroom in a Gatorade cup or a Gatorade bottle as I'm driving, or pull over, and stop real fast, close the door, and use the bathroom in there. So it was really kind of a bit much. And by them telling me that my times were not coming back, within a certain time frame, it kind of irritated me. And, of course, anyone who starts off new at this company, being a driver, you think you may know the city, but there's certain streets that you probably never have seen in your life, and that's how it was for me. So, of course, not having proper training, not knowing the city like I thought I did, my times would be, pretty long. But other employees' times would be long as well that were brand new or that were fresh to the company. So I didn't understand how it was only on me to where I was basically, in my opinion, picked on and singled out, that just because my times were late or, long, but I was the only one that was terminated. So the union rep eventually got back to him, and he told me, he said, no, you know what, I believe that you were not trained properly. And I told him I've been saying that for the longest. So he contacted the operations manager. The operations manager told him, hey, we appreciate your phone call on this employee's behalf, but guess what? Our contract states that we have 119 days to lay off whoever we want to. So basically I got caught up in that whole little setup.
Context of White Supremacy. Race soldiers, they excel at setting up black people. This is our weekly workplace racism broadcast. Today's date, Thursday, July 13th, 2017. So I have been told, hopefully we'll have some constructive information. Again, workplace racism. Every Thursday, if we have any black entrepreneurs listening in, certainly you should be one of the first to dial in to share about your experience and how being self-employed, if that has improved things for you in your career development, workplace situation. If we have folks, even if you're not self-employed, if you have figured out some things to make your job situation great, meaning you don't have problems being written up where they say, oh man, you don't talk enough. You're not a team player. You're not part of our family. You don't have problems. When it's time to get your raise, you get every bonus on time, every raise on time. You get your promotions. They're not messing over you on your job, what you heard from Daryl Muhammad just now. That's not happening to you, where you get messed up. They make up any kind of excuse. You're taking too long to get your job done, or you messed up in the training. We tried as best we could to educate you so you could do the job well, and you just can't get it through your thick skull. If you have figured out how to avoid all of that so you can just go to work, do your job as long as you feel like it, and then retire when you're ready, you should be on speed dial. The number 641-715-3640. The code 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. If you have problems, certainly always welcome. Dial in, share. We can give our thoughts, views. And I want to encourage folks, again, if you dial in previously, call and give us the update. And speaking for myself and hopefully others who listen in, this is not, just about being voyeurs and enjoying or being entertained by what other people are going through on their job. For me, it's just about improving codification. If we can figure out these are things that work. We've seen where people have been able to say this or use this particular strategy, and it has worked well more often than not. That is helpful. Seeing this does not work. I said this or I did this, and I didn't quite get the result that I was looking for, so I'm going to have to think about that some more. That's what we need. That's why I always encourage that, and just so we can kind of know how people are developing. Sometimes people have some tough stories, and I think people are genuinely concerned and hoping that people are able to figure out some codification to solve some of their problems. For today's broadcast specifically, I'm going to remind people throughout, this is going to be a shorter broadcast than normal because I don't know if people recall, but there was a segment I played on the compensatory call-in earlier this summer. Dr. Vanessa Grubb, she's a non-white female, unless I've been misinformed. She just wrote a book on racial disparities in organ transfer, who gets organ transplants. And from the clip, if you recall, she said her husband now, when they started dating, he had to get a kidney transplant, and it took really long. It was a really cumbersome process when they were dating. And so she started to investigate. She's a doctor. She's got medical expertise. So she started to investigate to see why this was such a difficult thing for him. And she found out that it was way more difficult for black people to get organs. No big surprise, but to get the details on it. But she's going to be here in Seattle tonight. And the reason that I was so gung-ho about attending is mostly about the location. I did immediately remember who she was, and I was interested in the book and wanted to check it out. So that would have been reason enough. But I was especially motivated because she's going to be speaking in a very white part of Seattle. Seattle and Washington State, super white on the whole. But this location is extra white. And it was a bit of extra racist offense for me because you bring in a quality author talking about racism, but as opposed to putting her someplace central, having her come like downtown Seattle, public library or wherever it is, where the few, non-white people that they do allow to be here could easily get to it. They put it way far north in an area where it's very few black people to talk about racism, where it'll be probably an all-white audience. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm the only black person there, but you can be sure Gus said, I'm not going to allow these whites to just sit back comfortable and not have any serious questions asked. In fact, I'm already thinking of how I can connect her book to Harriet Washington's medical apartheid when I ask my question, maybe even delectable Negro. But that's why it's going to be quick. So we're ending at 7 p.m., 2 hours, and then I will run upstairs. I'll have to see how I feel. Maybe I'll broadcast live at minimum. I can record and then upload later so you all can hear. But we're only going to be 2 hours, so I'll make sure to prompt. Do not wait till the last minute. Don't think you can just hang out and call in when you feel like it, because we'll be wrapping up a little bit short so that I can run upstairs. I'm on location. I can just run upstairs to the bookstore and go hear what Dr. Grubbs has to say. Really quick, I'll read some of the things that people wrote in as we go, but a couple quick things. Number one, there was serious talk where listeners who have some human resources experience and or interest in making a group to get resources and codification, workplace strategies, things that would help non-white people, and with regards to labor, just having some info so they could be a bit more informed operating on the job. If people out there are interested in being a part of that group, I guess you can drop me an email and I'll pile them up. Maybe there's somebody who would like to kind of be the leader of that project. You can be responsible, at least be the contact person to get emails and all of that. But if you drop me a line, let me know you're interested. I'll try and forward along emails until I can pass that duty off. Also, black male educators. I think there were, as I said before, there were a lot of people who were interested. When I wrote the report about black male educators for Atlanta Black Star, I said we could make it a program because more people responded than I could even include in the report. So if there are black male educators who would be interested in making a program to talk about their experience on the air, what's been difficult, if you figured out some strategies that are helpful that you'd like to share, You can drop me an email for that as well, untiljustice@gmail.com. Untiljustice@gmail.com. And I'll see if we can get a date time we can make that happen this very month. So if black male educators, if you are interested, let me know and we'll see if we can make it happen. Okay. People who wrote in. I did have people who wrote in. I guess that would go without saying for today. If even while we are live, if you would like to write an email, either commentary about what you've heard, or if you want to share your own situation, you can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com. Untiljustice@gmail.com. I'll keep it anonymous if you would like. If you want to, share your comments that way. I know some people cannot speak via phone for the program. Okay, first person who wrote in via workplace racism. Let's see. They're sending it as an attachment. Okay, here we go. Person writes in, because I'm employed in a healthcare facility, I'm required to have an annual tuberculin skin test, TB test. The skin test has to be read by a licensed nurse 3 days after taking it. When I was first employed at this facility 2 years ago, I had to miss a day and a half of work because of an issue dealing with a TB test. At the time, the racist white female administrator would not accept my test results, although they were current, but because they were taken at another facility. Being a new employee, I did not have paid time off, nor was I compensated for my missed time at work. Last Friday, due to an oversight on the part of my director, I was a week overdue for my test. Technically, employees are not permitted to work without a current TB test on file. It is the policy of my employer to lock all employee accounts and computer access if TB tests are not current. I knew that the moment that it was imperative for me to get my test done before the weekend. Immediately, I locate the female race soldier who administers the test sometime after 8:30 in the morning. After greeting her, I inform her of my need for a TB test. She responds by saying that she would get to me soon and she would find me. She never came. It was an hour and a half before I was ready to leave for the day that I went back to her office to remind her about my test. I lightly knocked on the door to her office. She became flabbergasted, great word, and placed a hand to her chest stating, "You scared me." I let her know that I will be leaving soon and I was wanting to get my TB test. She responded by saying that she was very busy and for me to come back before I left for the day. At that moment, I was done with the racist white woman. I asked for another nurse, a non-white black female, if she would administer the test for me. She gladly did it and took 5 minutes at the most. On Monday morning, the racist white nurse comes into the office with needle in hand and asks me if I'm ready for my shot. Of course, the tackiness. That's the sort of thing, and I'm so glad with this person because it seems like they got what they needed, right? So this wasn't a big problem for them. But that's what I mean about policy and procedure. This person knew, and from experience, the horror from what happened last time and wasting your time and energy is something I harp on this program all the time in workplace settings and beyond. They waste our time to just have us doing stuff we don't need to and wasting money and all of that. You know the policy and procedure yourself. You know, okay, this is a big deal. They got all this technology now. You can put a reminder in your cell phone or mobile device or whatever it is. TB test time is coming up. I know that is. Okay, I'm going to get this done way in advance. And like this person figured out here, I'm going to see if I can get this done without even having to ask any of these tacky race soldiers for anything. That way they cannot, negate my progress and what have you. And I would totally, my position would be, until proven otherwise, that the white woman did this on purpose. It not, getting around to her and I'm busy and I got 8,000 things to do and you almost gave me a heart attack, so I'm going to have to leave for the rest of the day. She did that on purpose, trying to mess you up further. This person gave an addendum. The follow-up, she says, I thought about this after the fact of my encounter with the racist white nurse administering the TB test. I thought it was worth mentioning. I am certain that the only reason this race soldier hunted me down to give me the shot on Monday was because another coworker in my department, who is a white female, requested a TB test.
The race soldier wasted no time in complying with her request. I was just an afterthought. I am not surprised at all. Music to my ears. That's the way that we have to be. That's what codification, for me, that's what codification means on the job and in general. Not being surprised. This is what I expect. You're going to do everything you possibly can. Throw coffee on me. Throw staples on the floor and try and make me trip. Try and elbow me in the hallway. Anything to just make things difficult for me so that I have a ruined day, ruined career. That's what you all are about. Again, I am not surprised at all. It is just standard operating procedure for white people to practice racism. Absolutely. This is from Little Red, who wrote in with that. Awesome. I'll share some of the other observations as we proceed. Number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564943 pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Again, to remind folks, we're only going to be here for 2 hours, so do not wait till the last minute. Go ahead and get a hand up if you have commentary to share. Looking forward to going to the book reading upstairs. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, line should be open. If you have commentary, proceed.
White people there, what are you just doing?
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thanks for taking my call, Gus. Good evening to everyone. I would like to share, this isn't a experience of mine at the workplace, but it was kind of I don't like to say a coincidence because I think things happen for a reason, but a non-white, non-black acquaintance of mine, she works as a social worker, so to speak. I don't think she's officially a social worker, but anyway, she makes in-home visits to families and concerning their children, and I guess trying to see how things are going, how their education is going, and things of that nature. But like I said, I guess it was a sort of a coincidence. She texted me like an hour before the program started here, so I thought it would be nice to share. So I want to read verbatim pretty much the text messages that I got. That it was against workplace racism. So again, she's like a social worker. So she she's somewhat confused. But so here it goes. She says, "I was discriminated against ... by a 9-year-old." So I say, "Wow." She say, "Yeah, my thoughts exactly." Again, her text. "His mom apologized to me." She said something else many times. And so I said, "White boy?" Question mark. And she says, "Yes." And then I said, maybe I'm not so codified, but I said, "She taught him that," referring to the child's mom. And she says, she texts me, I asked him where he learned that, and he said school. And the school he goes to is an alternative school for defiant and aggressive kids with mental problems. So I text her, "What did he say?" And she says, "I greeted him and he said, 'You're black. I can't talk to you. Black people are bad and are probably going to kill me.' And he walked away." And then I text her, "Oh, so that was really meant for someone like me." And she texts me, "So then I asked him where he learned that, and he said at school." She said the same thing again. All the black people are bad." She's quoting the 9-year-old. And I said, "Wow," again. And she says, "I'm thinking," she texts, "I'm thinking black to him is anything non-white." So maybe she's not so confused, but she says, "I'm thinking black to him means anything non-white." I thought that was really interesting because I'm a bronze caramel color. That's what she says. And then I said, "Maybe he just thought you were a lighter skinned black person." And then she says, LOL. And that was the end of the text, and I just thought that was really, really interesting. And I know we say on this program a lot that it's not these old elderly white people that are practicing racism. I mean, you get a new crop going every second. So, but that's all I have for now. Thanks for letting me share.
Wow, that sounds like that might be a text exchange to screenshot and save for the records, if nothing more than for personal amusement. But that's great on a number of levels. Exactly what you just said. We always talk about it's the older racist, but for that sort of thing, that's already the understanding that he has of black people at this age. Wow. And great question. Where do you think he learned that from? Just see what they say. But I mean, that's the environment. If we're talking about in the school situation, that's what we're dealing with. And that's something I'm not sure if people even think about in terms of educators. How do you deal with that? Yes, your children need to be prepared to deal with that too. But, educators, black educators, prepared. What's your counter-racist code? If you have a racist child is one of your students, and now you have to deal with that. I mean, it's a lot to consider. Great observation. Thank you so much for sharing. If we had people who had comments on that, if we had educators who wanted to respond to that or share any thoughts, feel free. If any of the other folks on the line with us with a hand up wanted to comment, I think Stacy in the UK is with us also. Feel free to chime in.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings, everyone. This is Ari. So I just wanted to respond to the first story that you read about the TB test. I am also in the medical field. I'm a nursing assistant. I don't work in facilities anymore that require a TB test, but it's pretty much the same song that I was hearing. I can totally relate because I don't really know. I haven't seen any TB test policies in the procedure, but from my experience, just the jobs that I have worked at, the facilities that do require a TB test, they are very bad at giving it to you on time and even letting you know, but that's something you should already know yourself. But just in order to bypass, the racist supervisor or the nurse that is supposed to be administering that, I would just go over her. Like I said, I would check the policy and procedure, but I don't recall any of the policy and procedures that I used to work at having any thing in there, so maybe that's something they might add if someone questioned it. I would just go over her. There's somebody the director of nursing, which is a little above the supervisors, and then if the director of nursing doesn't do anything, which usually they will, because usually it's just kind of the nurse supervisors are the ones that think that they're the ones on the floor with you that think they can just boss you around and tell you what to do. But from my experience, I just go over them. I'm just really abrupt with them and dismissive. I would just say, hey, I need my TB test done. Here's my paper. And if they kind of put it off, then I'll just go straight to the office and just say, is there anybody else that can give me it? I'm about to leave for work and it's due. And you kind of just have to do that every time you're on shift, because ultimately it will fall on you. And I haven't lost time off of work from that, but I can see how it would really affect someone. And also, that was that. I just had a question, and maybe someone can offer some advice. So I've been with this job for 6 months, and when I accepted the job, the offer letter that they gave me was the contingencies were at 3 months, I would get a review, and then at 6 months, I would get a review, and then at 9 months, and that's all it said in the letter. So like I said, it's been 6 months, and they haven't contacted me. I don't go to a workplace or a building. I just kind of travel and work. So the only communication I have with them is through email or phone, but mostly I prefer email because I have it on documentation. And I've been codified for the last 6 months. So this job I started, I was like, okay, cool, I like it because I don't see anyone. If I need them, I call them, they call me, or if I don't want to talk to them, just email. So I was just wondering, they haven't mentioned anything about the review for the 3-month review and for the 6-month review. And in the letter, when I first got hired, was saying my position was like temporary, which I didn't really care because that's the kind of job I was looking for anyways. It's like a weekend job. So they haven't mentioned anything about the 3-month review or the 6-month review coming up. But there's another part to it, which I think is kind of funny because, like I said, I've been codified with them when I need to communicate about problems or just anything. I've been really codified, and sometimes it's to a point where I know I get under their nerves because I'm not I know they know I'm not dumb and they can't pull one over me. So I check my mail. I don't check my mail too often. I once a week, and so I checked my mail the other day, and I had this packet in the mail, and it was the certificate of appreciation, and it was really tacky. I was just bursted out laughing. They spelled my name wrong, and like I said, I communicate with them through emails. So I've never seen them have a spelling error or any grammatical errors. Really, they seemed pretty good. But this letter was thank you, Ari, misspelled. You pick up shift, not plural, and you you are a good communicate. So I just showed the people around me, and we started laughing. It was really tacky. But yeah, my main question is, should I ask them about my review, or should I just kind of let it go? I mean, I know maybe the answer is probably, yeah, I should talk to them. But for me, that's kind of why I'm asking, because I'm not sure. But that's all I have for now. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate that, Ari. I guess my view on the tackiness of the card should not be minimized, in my opinion, either. That sort of thing. The name misspelled, and then everything else within that says a lot right there. I would keep that in my file as well, just to remember the tackiness, even when it looks like they're trying to do something. We appreciate how hard you work. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, folks, if you said this is kind of a temporary thing, it's not like you're looking to be here for 15, 20 years, right? Become a partner at the company, it seemed. I guess my only reason that I would generally encourage people, it might be something to inquire about the review, because sometimes if they're trying to sabotage and get rid of us or make trouble for you on the job, sometimes they'll try to say, oh, well, you haven't been doing this correctly, you haven't been doing that correctly. And if there's a problem, then those reviews is where that could be addressed. So if it's something that I haven't been doing right, you always have an opportunity where they should be the one that are bringing this to the forefront to say, hey, I think there might be some concerns or some things that we want to make sure that you're working on so you can be a better employee. Or if you are doing great work, if you've been doing exemplary, how about a raise? That's where it would come up in the review that, hey, you are just killing it. You're doing way better work, and you're picking up all these shifts. You've not been late. You've not missed any days. Wow, you're just doing amazing work. Maybe a raise. That would be my only caution in terms of both of those could be to your advantage to have a review, so that if there are any problems that they're going to try and bring up later, you could nip that in the bud in the review now. Or if you're doing great and it's time for a raise, either or could happen there. Those would be the only reasons why I would say, yeah, I would maybe inquire about it. But I totally understand if this is not a long-term thing and you're just doing this in the time being. Did other folks have suggestions on this 3-month review that was a part of the deal for taking the job, but they haven't done it? Would you inquire about it, or no big deal, just continue about your business and not say anything?
Hi, Gus.
Oh, that's Stacy in the UK.
Yeah, hi, and hi to everyone on the floor. I guess I would ask about it, simply because whether you stay or not, whether you plan to be with the organisation or not for a long time, the fact is that when you do move on to another organisation, they may go back to that company to get feedback. So that's the only reason I would do, and you don't want any surprises sprung on you at the end of 6 months if it is the case that you plan it to be there more than that 6 month period. So for that reason alone, that I would ask about it. If they don't do the review, fine, but at least you've got a record of you requesting it, and certainly I would still keep my own personal record of the things that I've done, skills that I've acquired, and any achievements that I've made, irrespective of what the company does itself. But yeah, I mean, that's just my view anyway. I'll mute my line just in case anyone's got other comments, Gus.
Awesome hearing from Stacy in London. I think it's currently 1:40 a.m. Friday morning, and she is hanging in tough for workplace racism. Did other folks have suggestion or thought? Do you inquire about the review or let it go? Other folks' thoughts? Inquire about the review or let it go?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Greetings, beautiful people. This is Emmy. I'm going to concur with Miss Stacy. I was going to say the exact same thing, that I would inquire about the review, and I would actually want the review too. Like, I actually like jobs that do reviews. I find that if they do them consistently, and I do end up spending some amount of time there, I can always request a copy, or I always do have a copy. So when I go to the next job and I say, well, this is what I did, these are some of my strong points, like, sometimes it's good to have that. I don't just have my resume. Like, I'll try to have other things that speak to what I can provide. That way I can get a better job and make more money, pretty much. And for the other reasons that other folks have said, like, if there's an issue, then it's documented and you're able to work on it and all that good stuff. But I also think, like, sometimes we can use them to our benefit and highlight some of our good things that we can have proof for. Because sometimes recommendations, like when they call on the phone, it doesn't always work out. Like, if it ended badly, but in the process of it being good in the beginning, you have a record of that, that's good. That's just my little spin, so thanks.
Grand, Emmy, grand. Any other thoughts, suggestions on the review? It seems like right now everybody's kind of leaning on the inquire about it. It would be good to inquire about it, see if they'll do it. Any other suggestions or thoughts? Anybody think they would know? They would just let it go. If they haven't asked about it, forget it. I would assume some of the other folks who dialed in have their own concern that they want to address. If you are dialing in, you have your own problem, concern that you want to address, or something that we talked about already that you want to comment on, feel free.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. To everybody, I wanted to first ask you, Gus, if it's okay that I use a term for my name that you usually use. You always say highly victimized. So can I borrow that from you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's going to be my name, highly victimized, or HV for short. But I don't have my own personal workplace racism to share, but I wanted to share one that I observed. The interview with Dr. Umar Johnson and Roland Martin, they kind of sparred, and then they brought in some black women to kind of spar with him as well. And what I immediately saw was like, you know what? Racist white supremacists are behind this. And usually before I started getting into the cows, I would have gotten upset with them. And I remember a previous show where President Obama on the cows, he was being criticized by some of the callers, and you weren't having that or any of that. And because their position was, he's not doing this for survival, he's doing this for trinkets, he has a big time job and things like that. And what I've learned from listening to workplace racism is that there isn't any job that you can go to, that black people can go to, and not be forced to mistreat other black people and other non-white people to keep their jobs, whether it be writing them up unjustly, docking their pay unjustly, reprimanding them in a disrespectful way, reporting them unjustly, firing them unjustly, whatever it might be. So I just wanted to thank you for just having that, and even Mr. Fuller as well, having that mentality that, we don't criticize each other because we all are highly victimized. And as a result, instead of getting angry when I'm looking at this stuff and seeing them argue back and forth, and he's trying to, Dr. Umar Johnson is trying to defend black women, and now now some black women are arguing with him and interrupting him and all this stuff, that I'm looking that instead of getting mad, now I just feel very, very sorry for everyone. And I would think that has a traumatic effect, that you have to disrespect these people that are victimized like you, and set yourself up for criticism and all these different things. So that was it, and I will mute my line.
Wow. That is very common in terms of whether it's direct like that, which you're talking about with the situation with Roland Martin and Dr. Umar, whether it's direct like that, where a lot of times racists, they can orchestrate different scenarios where they might not even be physically present, but they're still setting it up so that they're the ones responsible for non-white people bickering, squabbling with one another. They can do it directly like that, or they can have other situations where they just put you in a job where things are not going to be efficient, and it might even look like a non-white person is in charge. So everybody gets upset and they're mad about how things are going. Maybe the paychecks come in a day late, or just all kinds of little things that just end up making it efficient so that people get upset. They don't argue with the white people in charge. They get upset with the non-white person. That is consistent within the system of racism, white supremacy. Whites are awesome at that, and that's always, in my view at least, I think it's really good in work situations just to kind of keep that in mind, make sure even if we get frustrated with other non-white people, to keep in mind who is most to blame and try as best we can to be courteous, even with the other non-white people that we don't agree with. Yes, ma'am?
I'll just quickly take it up. If I could throw in a quick follow-up. It's similar to something that I already said. And the reason I brought this particular one up with Dr. Umar Johnson is because they would look at him and Roland and the rest of them as people who are just, throwing each other under the bus and throwing black people under the bus for trinkets and things of that nature. And just like I said, like with the president, that these things go on from McDonald's all the way up to, the Oval Office. So it doesn't matter what job it is. Like racist white supremacists are orchestrating behind the scenes for us to mistreat each other no matter what it is. So you can't always just look at them and look at how much they're making and things like that and think, oh, well, they're just selling you out and things like that. If they weren't getting these high-paid jobs, if they go to a low-paying job, they will still be forced to mistreat non-white or black people in order to keep that job. So that was it.
Yep. We're still in the system of racism, white supremacy. That's really at the end of the day, regardless of how many zeros you got on your paycheck or how much you get in your direct deposit or whatever form of compensation, or if you have zero, you don't get anything, no nickels for you at all. What the racists decide, we're still under the system of white supremacy. That's the most important thing to keep in mind. Even I saw some people got frustrated. I had said back in Virginia, that's where I was born. In Virginia, they had that march. The KKK had an armed march last weekend, and they had a photograph of a black police officer. He was there, and he was, I guess that was his job for the day. They said, you're going to provide security for these armed Klan members. And people were upset, and same thing, frustrated with him. System of white supremacy, very easy. This is what your job is going to be today. And either you can do it, or feel free. You can hand in your badge and your gun and, feel free to try it. See if you can get better employment in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Make a decision. We'll give you 5 minutes. That's the system of white supremacy. The people that are most to blame for all of this, racist man, racist woman, racist child. Very important to keep that in mind, even in the workplace. Other folks we've not heard from, either if you had commentary on what you just heard from HV, if you had commentary on anything people have presented thus far, your own situation, feel free. The other folks taking their time or spectating. I've said consistently we should not have spectating, and especially not today. It should not be people dialing in with a hand up and loafing or being quiet because we will only be here for 2 hours. I am going to the event to see Dr. Vanessa Grubbs, her book Interlaced Fingers on the racial disparities, the term she uses in organ transplants. So do not lollygag today. Let's see, while folks are... Oh, there we go. Was there a female caller as well?
Hi, Gus, that was me, but I have spoken already, Stacey. So I don't know if you wanted to take someone who hasn't spoken.
We might as well get everyone today since we don't have time to spare. We'll get Stacey, and then we'll get the male caller. I think that was still learning. We'll get him as well. Stacey, did you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to respond to what was just being said, but I'll do that in the context of my update as well. Because it is really difficult, because even though, definitely for me, just like the other caller, listening to this program has helped me become more codified in my own behaviour, but more understanding of the way that non-white people can get used in the workplace and in the system of racism. As I said, with my experience, certainly having a non-white female being used as a mechanism or a tool for not suspected racist, confirmed racist, undermining me, makes it challenging, because sometimes you are having to challenge that behaviour. And it's been quite difficult for me, because I'm trying to not be that person, to focus on the behaviour of the non-white person, but at the same time they are doing stuff which will affect my livelihood, my future. So there's a balance to be struck there. And I just wanted to clarify something in terms of, I won't go through all the detail because I did talk about it at length on the last program, but I did talk about the fact that I've had a director and also a young person coming into the organisation, pushing into me and being physically aggressive with me. The young person is actually also a non-white female. And that again has been really difficult, because she was somebody who I did get on really well with, and as I said, she used to come into the building and hug me, and there's absolutely no reason why her behaviour should have changed towards me. So all I know is that behind the scenes, someone has fed her something which has affected her behaviour towards me. But she's in her early 20s, so she's old enough to know better as well. And with my update on the actual situation, this week the non-white female who manages the race soldier who put in the initial complaints about me, because what I've been doing is making sure that any meetings that I've had and the inappropriate behaviour is well and truly documented, and everything that they say, everything that I say gets recorded, and I was pulled up by my head of team last week for doing so. But I'm continuing anyway, because if their behaviour is correct, then we shouldn't have any problems recording anything in writing. So this week, the non-white female came back to me off of the last set of notes I sent to her, and she was querying one point. I emailed her back and said, my notes are accurate, and I'm very sure that my notes are accurate. But what she does when she's coming back on her notes is that she's saying, oh, well, I wouldn't have said that, or what was meant was blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to correct anything on the back of what you meant to say, or I wouldn't have said that. You did say it. And so if there's any subsequent investigation, that's when she can give her corrections or clarify what she meant. So I emailed her back and I said my notes are accurate. I then got an email from her stating, what did she say? Seeing as though we're not in agreement on the accuracy of the notes, can we agree that they don't get circulated beyond the 4 people who had been copied in the email, which was myself, her, my line manager, and head of team? So I emailed her back just for clarification, because, well, what do you mean? oh, well, you know, not beyond the four of us. So I emailed her back. I said, my notes are accurate. And to clarify, I'm not looking for your permission as to where I will circulate my notes. And also, you are free to determine what you do with them. And before I sent that email, I could hear my manager whispering in her ear, yeah, I think that's a good, you know, thing that you emailed. And essentially everybody's worried because what they're doing is now well and truly documented. So that was the end of that. I did have a conversation with my union rep, or email correspondence with my union rep today, because yesterday I was again in the office. I'd spoken to HR about the process for the investigation on Tuesday, and I made him aware that, and I was struggling with this part, but I made him aware that I was going to report the young person's behaviour to the police, and the only reason I hadn't decided to report my director is because somewhere in my mind, and I was wrestling with it because I thought, why am I doing one and not the other? But somewhere in my mind I thought she wasn't actually going to do anything again, or what, you know, I don't know. But I was struggling with it. Needless to say, yesterday she did it again. She elbowed me in my back. I took it straight to HR. They recommended that I go home, and if I wanted to, I could get my doctor to sign me off and take more time off. I needed to be out of the office today anyway, but as I said, I emailed my union rep this morning just to make them aware of the situation. What they did do is caution me on whether I should be reporting it to the police, so I queried that. And the email back was, oh, well, maybe they might think you're, escalating it too far, basically. So, you know, that it may be seen that you're taking it too far. I'm going to ignore that. And tomorrow, because I didn't have a chance today, but tomorrow I will be reporting it to the police. HR did email me, but because I was on training out of the building today, I didn't get a chance to speak to them. But essentially what I've done is made them aware of exactly what went on yesterday afternoon. What HR had said is on Tuesday is that they will investigate, but they needed more detail from me before they notify everyone and formally start the investigation. So my email this morning was basically back to my the group director who's responsible for all staff in the organisation. This is the position. Fair enough, you need to go through a process, but this supersedes it. So I want them to now intervene, remove me from the team, place me somewhere else in the organisation, and also make everybody aware that they are now under investigation and that their behaviours are being monitored. Because I'm not going to put up with that. It's just way, as I said, it's way beyond anything that's even remotely acceptable. But I'll stop there. But yeah, I mean, it's just literally, it is difficult because, yes, we are wanting to acknowledge that others, other non-white people are victims, but at the same time, they are also got to be responsible for their own behaviour, and that has been one of the most difficult things for me in this whole process. But yeah, I'll mute my line, Gus.
Man, I hope you take advantage, since you were saying that they were saying that you could see a doctor if you wanted to take some time off. I would definitely try to take some time off because you've been talking to us about this for a while, both being physically. Experienced the physical violence in the hallways from this race soldier, and now you said it seems like it's another non-white person, a younger person who's doing this as well. And then before that, the situation with being accused of, I guess, being rude and talking down to this other suspected racist white guy there, and all of that. Just, it's been so much turmoil that you've been dealing with on this job for so long. I would definitely encourage the time off. I think that is great, your strategy of taking this to the police, since it has escalated and this has been going on for a while and they're not doing anything about it. That makes great sense to me. And even that pattern where they have been terrorizing you and even physical violence in terms of the way that they've been targeting you for months, but they consistently, they do this worldwide, they consistently find a way to come back, and it's you that are the violent one. I think we talked about that in terms of that was kind of mitigating your response to being violated in the hallway, because you felt that they would immediately it would be some sort of recrimination and, oh my gosh, Stacy she's a savage. I mean, if you look at her funny in the hallway, she's ready to accuse you of something. And these black females, they're so we talked about that before. It's just been such a toxic environment. If you can get the time off, that would be phenomenal. I think it would be great to take care, do some self-care. And then the police bringing them in, hopefully that can help in showing that you're being serious about this and that you're not going to just tolerate them and then adding more people just abusing you in the hallway and other things. I want to get comment if listeners have feedback, if they have any thoughts on you contacting the police about this and the other way that you dealt with it. If folks have any feedback, I just want to make sure we grab the male caller who spoke up simultaneously. Thank you for your patience, sir. Were you going to comment?
Thank you again. I was just commenting on the one of the previous female callers that was saying about the 3-month performance appraisal. I definitely suggest that she bring it up and inquire about it. It's not just for practicing like codification. So I like to, whenever I'm held to a standard, they employers hold employees to a standard of meeting deadlines and timelines. They hold employees to a standard, hold them to a standard too, and as well as document the fact that you had to inquire about your 90-day appraisal. But that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. They hold you, as you said, to deadlines. That TB test is supposed to happen on this date or else. They hold us to deadlines. I think that makes a lot of sense in making sure that they're also abiding by their own timelines, schedules, what's supposed to be happening with your own career development. Did we have any listeners comments on what we heard from Stacy in terms of how she's handling her situation, escalating and getting enforcement officials involved? I know when that came up last week, it was a non-white female. She was being terrorized on the job, and that also came up, and people were kind of some people thought it was a good idea to contact the police. Other people thought that might make it worse. Just bring in more race soldiers who will not help out and might even, contribute to the problem. If we had people who've had thoughts on that or anything else that we've discussed so far today, feel free.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Can I be heard? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, female. Ma'am, go ahead.
No, that's okay. You can go ahead.
Can I be heard, Gus?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, and good evening to the C.O.W.S family. I wanted to, my name's Ramon from Colorado, and I wanted to address, at least chime in, because you're always asking about independent contractors and what we might have learned out there. I would say my codification for being an independent contractor, particularly an interior remodeler, is that I always start my estimates by assessing how my prospects are gauging me questions. And then I'm taking a visual assessment, as we're going through the house, how they're allowing, if they have children, how they're allowing the children to interact, if they're interacting at all with me as a contractor. So these things I use later in my workplace safety policy. So when I get my estimates together, I will send the workplace safety policy informing clients that we cannot have children or pets within so many feet of the workplace or within our point of entry. And typically sometimes I'll get, they won't push back verbally. You can hear it in their response, how their tone is. So we'll just hit them with the insurance compliance. Another thing I would encourage, if they're not doing it as an independent contractor, I secure deposits for all my jobs. 50% labor, 100% materials. And that's kind of my codification for being an independent contractor. And I have, this is more of a neighborhood racism story. Some time ago, I was off doing an errand for my wife for a baby shower. And she said while I was gone, she had went over to give our neighbor just across the street some party favors that they was giving out for the baby shower. And they chit-chatted a little bit. He asked if we needed anything. She thanked him, but told him we were covered. Again, he asked, but he said, is there anything, anytime, let me know. Anything, just let me know. Birth control, anything. And this, so that's how he ended that scenario. But then another occasion, I was landscaping my yard, and my landscaper and I were sitting there talking about what type of fertilizing we were going to do. And the same neighbor happened to be standing there next to us, listening. So he said, "Oh, well, I can provide you some dead bodies." So, needless to say, we were all shocked. But that's my workplace racism and codification. Thank you.
I'm not surprised to have a non-white person, and particularly if you're doing working people's like residents, to have you coming in and telling them, where Fido can and cannot go in their domicile or their children, no less. I can see that, rankling a few folks, and you having to be assertive. This is what it is. If I'm going to be doing the job, ma'am, sir. Yeah, and I'm not surprised with the comments at all. Birth control, dead bodies. That's going back to what I said when the email that I read earlier in terms of not being surprised. At best, tacky. Princess, did you have commentary? Thank you for sharing. Caller in Colorado. Princess, did you have commentary? Not hearing you. Don't know if you hit your mute button or not.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to take care of something. It'll be just a moment. You can go to the next call.
Got it. While we are waiting for Princess, make sure I remind people this is not our typical broadcast because I'm going to catch Dr. Vanessa Grubbs. So we will probably be here about 2 hours. If you have commentary, you should go ahead and speak now. Do not wait and think that you can just lollygag and speak up at some time later. We have less than an hour in the broadcast. Number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. Did we miss anybody? Folks have commentary they want to share?
Hello?
Can I be heard?
Heard both of you.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. We'll get our female caller first, and then we'll get the male.
Thank you, Gus. I wanted to respond to Stacey's situation in the UK. I'm really sorry to hear her situation. I could hear the distress in her voice, understandably so. And forgive me if this has already been mentioned by Stacey or another caller, but no job, whatever it is worth the beautiful template you've been given with, which is your body, and your physical health. So I would encourage Stacey or ask if she's been looking for another job or when she has her time off, if she thought of spending some time also looking for another job. I don't know what the employment situation is like in the UK where she is, because just the myriad of the different situations that were described, I've never heard of that. I mean, it's like it runs the gamut, and that can cause anyone great distress, and that could lead to stroke. That could lead to, in the long term, that could lead to stroke, hypertension, insomnia. So I just wanted to encourage Stacy, maybe if she, and I hope I'm not being offensive, but maybe she could look for another job, and I'll keep her in my prayers. Thank you.
Can I be heard?
Was that Princess?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Yes, I do apologize. I'm trying to actually cook dinner. I was just wanted to share some little bit of an update on my situation at work. I'm calling from Florida, but I used to reside in New Orleans at one point. But this week, we're going through a lot of changes at the corporate level with my job. So they're doing a lot of remodeling at some of the other locations. So I had volunteered to cover at another store to help with the process and work with the team and management, overseeing all of this stuff going on. And so when I got to the location, I was paired up with an older white female. And, you know, we pretty much was doing, you know, our work nonetheless. And I had ran into two of the other people from my old location before I was abruptly forced to transfer and stuff. And this female, who I also reported to corporate, and I stated to them about the issues that I've had with her in the past. Now, you're talking about a full store of about 40 managers coming from the surrounding location in Central Florida. I'm at somebody else's store. So the manager or the store manager is at the premises. However, this same female that I've been having issues with, I've never spoken to her at all since I've left the store. I had no prior communication with her even when I was at the store, but definitely when I left. She finds it upon herself to come in my vicinity where I'm working at with this other white female and proceeded to ask me a question, almost as if she was trying to antagonize me. So my response was to not respond, and I purposely ignored her. And I made it so that way she knew it, and it caused the older white female to have to answer. But even the older white female, after she had walked away, she was like, why did she come all the way over here to ask you something like that? And I didn't want to go into any detail because, you know, I don't know if she knows her or, you know, how white people usually work together to cover each other. I didn't want her saying anything else to another manager and, you know, creating an issue. So I just said, oh, I don't know. But, you know, I just played it off. But she tried it again, and I guess this time she you know, felt like she could try and, I guess, intimidate me or whatnot. Really don't know. But I just made it to where it was obvious to her that, no, I'm not talking to you about anything, and you don't need to come over here to ask me anything. This is not my store. You can ask the actual store manager that's on duty. There was no reason for you to come and invade my space for any reason. So I later find out through another employee that came from my store location to come help out and make some overtime. He had told me that she actually walked up to him and asked about me and was basically saying how I didn't like her and she doesn't know why and all this stuff. And he was just like, you know, just telling me some of the things that she was saying and stuff. So, but as far as the investigation that I initially put out, I must say that, well, I'm hesitant to say things are a little bit better since one of the problems had been moved out of the location, which was the white male that I had to work with, another manager. He was moved to another location. I probably learn, give him an update on that. But just doing your due diligence on a lot of stuff. And like I said, it's very tiring having to go through each and every day trying to plan out how you're going to work around white supremacy. So other than that, I'll mute my line. Thanks, Gus.
Thank you, Princess. Please do not burn your chitlins on our account. That is a great suggestion. Yeah, okay. I heard frying in the background. You generally don't. Anyway, that was a great suggestion, I thought, with remembering to you got to be mindful, even and I would say whether it's a non-white person or a suspected racist. If you're in a work situation and this is somebody that you've already had some problems with, or you have reason to suspect that this person might be up to mischief, and they come by with that sort of thing, they come by to make their comment or question or whatever they do, and they're just trying to rankle you, and they leave, and they do this in the presence of another person, whether they're white or non-white, I wouldn't have anything to say, because even if it's a non-white person, it could be the exact same thing, where they leave, and I can't believe that heifer came over here talking, and you say whatever you say, and then that other person, even if it's a non-white person, they could just hear that and say, oh, wow, Princess was over there and she was just gossiping and talking so bad and all she did was ask a question and I don't even know. And then they enter that in the record that, oh, wow, well, it seems you've been to... None of that. I would just take it at all times. Either I'm being recorded or watched. Everything that I say is going to be transcribed, audio, video, and played back in a loop for the next 5 years. That's the way that you want to function, so that you're very mindful at all times what you say, what you don't say, what you're doing, and just speak as though everybody in the company is going to hear what I say right now. Every time I open my mouth, everybody here will know exactly what I said. When you get in a habit of working like that, you are not careless with your speech, and we definitely don't want to be reckless with our talking in the job. Was there a male caller who spoke up simultaneously?
Yes, sir. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very, very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. I had a few updates, situations or whatnot on my job. The first is there have been, what I've been noticing is that there have been a lot of people coming in, I guess what they call truancy, or the restoration of civil rights and rights to get firearms and whatnot. And I've noticed that most of them have been black people, mainly black males. For instance, today there was a black male, I guess in his late 60s, and he said that something came up about something he did in 1969. And I'm like, it's 2017. So, they must really be at work trying to get him extracted or purged from his employment or place of employment. So it hadn't just been him, but I've noticed that most of the people who come in and request some kind of a background check or some kind of a printout of their record history are black people. And these are things that have been done many years ago. And I thought about when Mr. Fuller spoke something similar to this about how they'll already have you computerized. If you do something, they'll come back to say you did this and that, and they'll just make up anything. When by comparison, you have white people who do notoriously greater things, of course, but they aren't held to the same judgment, I guess. The next was there was a couple of customers, black female customers, that came in to make copies. So I was helping the black female make copies. So the machine that you have to use to pay for the copies, they copied the documents incorrectly. So I said, to compensate on that, I made the copies myself. And, I just told her to just press on the machine to get her money back. So, I go and make the copies, and I come back, I give her accurately made copies, and they leave. And this, my coworker, she says, I can't stand ghetto. So I don't know, some kind of statement just came out of nowhere, and I, linked it up to them just leaving. And this person is classified as white. Once again, a younger person, maybe like 22 years old. She says she can't stand ghetto. So, I just kept on doing what I did. There wasn't no question to me. It was just a statement that I heard. So I found that something to document. And the next was this. I know I've spoken numerous times about this suspected white supremacist guy who I guess they say he may have a mental issue or whatever, but he had an update on his case that I was looking on, because I definitely try to make sure I keep an update on what's going on. So he had like a sealed document image in his case where he was being examined, I guess, by a physician. And the document was basically detailing, I guess, something about him being a schizophrenic. And they was asking him certain things. He was mentioning something about Jesus Christ and the disciples and whatnot. But one thing that was very alarming to me was the most violent thing that he said was when he was asked a question about who do you feel is against you, or something about the word against, or do you think anyone is against you? And his response was in quotes, it's all harmony except niggers it's all harmony except niggers staring down a barrel. So that was in quotes of what he said. And I noticed that the document, it didn't go into more detail about that statement that he used. So I found that very interesting. So this guy, apparently, I guess they said that he wasn't competent to stand trial. So he's supposed to have a hearing within the next couple of months. So I guess he's supposed to be getting some kind of treatment or whatever, but I don't think he's held to the same strenuous charges as if a black male did something. The black male, I know, he was court ordered not to come to the courthouse and sent off to some kind of Baker Act facility. So, it just goes to show the difference in how they deal with incorrect acts from white and non-white. And that's all I have for now. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Appreciate that. Another one of our callers down in Florida. Wow, that last situation, I think definitely where black people end up being the ones that are punished, persecuted, not white people. I think that's all the time, every day, worldwide system of racism, white supremacy. I think even in the first vignette that you were talking about, where you were saying that the people that come down to get printouts of their, I guess, criminal background or whatever it is, that it's black people, and, stuff that they did 20 years ago when they were, in their teens or very young. And that's still, I know people, non-white people here in this area, exact same thing, things that happened 15, 20 years ago, and they're still struggling. That's still being used as a justification to deny them resources. And it's the exact opposite for racist man, racist woman. It could have just been, because I was thinking when you were talking about the second situation with I guess some black people came in and they were getting photocopies and you went to help them out because the copier is cheap or whatever it is. And then the white woman said she couldn't stand ghetto. It's been my experience, just, a black person, it seems like you might have been going above and beyond the call of duty to help these folks out with their photocopies. It's been my experience that racists, they hate it. They have done so much in contaminating us to be anti-black, to see a black person helping out and being courteous and patient with another black person. Like, oh man, like you have ruined my day. Like I'm going to have to go and watch Birth of a Nation when I get home, or replay some footage from the Michael Brown protests or something to get my spirits back up, because I'm totally disgusted. So it could have just been that. just, seeing you help them out and everything, that, niggas coming here and using up our copier and he's going to give them the money back. Oh, it's ruined my, that could have been what it was. She had to say something, so she just said she can't stand ghetto. Yeah, folks, come to their own conclusion. But even little things like that is the type of thing that I think you should pay attention to in the workplace. Because, like I said, it's racist. They're not ignorant, and they're paying attention all the time. That sort of thing. I don't just chalk it up to benefit of the doubt, or she wasn't talking about us, or whatever. I generally just do not take that stance with whites. Other folks commented that they wanted to share, other things that they wanted to relate. The race soldier definitely not being treated the same way. Absolutely. It sounds like he's about to get a few months of sensitivity training and packed up on his way. They'll probably have that sealed in his record, be expunged, no problems. He can move forward and be a productive citizen on the global plantation. Other folks have commentary that they wanted to get in. We miss anybody? We miss any folks? Folks have, oh, yes, we did. Other folks who dialed in more recently with a hand up. Line should be open.
Ma'am,
got both of you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Right on.
Okay. I thank you so much, retired firefighter. And hello to you, Gus, and all the I just have one question. And the lady that you're going to see, are you going to try to have her on on your show?
I mean, I guess it would be nice. This book just came out. I think this book just came out within the last 2 months or so. I just saw it. I think I just played it on the program within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I just found out that she was coming here on Sunday. So all of this was very quick. If I get an opportunity to chat it up with her after the show, if I have to elbow a few of the white audience members out of the way to go chat it up and see if she'll chat with us, absolutely. Or even if I contact her via email afterwards, just say, hey, I saw you in Seattle that night. Be great to have you on the program. We'll definitely see if we can get her on, and I will try to record this evening.
Okay, great, thank you. And that's what I wanted to ask. I don't have anything, there's always a lot to talk about workplace racism, but I don't have anything for that. But I just wanted to ask that question. So I'm going to mute myself. Thank you, and thank you to retired firefighter for letting me get in this. And Gus, you have a good time at this. I'm really eager to hear about, her story and what she's talking about.
Me too. I'm super excited. I think we have C.O.W.S listeners in the building as well. Retired firefighter, were you going to comment?
Yes, I'm just thinking how to voice it because I don't have a direct workplace racism to report, but within the people activity of employment, I think what is constructive and positive about I don't want to say the word balance off the workplace racism is. I'll just go ahead and say it. I think we have a means of, when it comes to employing people to do services for us, which is their workplace. If we can give it thought, is to attempt to hire as many non-white people, and I would say preferably non-white black people as possible. Because it could, for one thing, for that non-white person, that non-white black person, by a black person hiring them, it would certainly improve their entrepreneurial status. I would say first and foremost, unless somebody can tell me something different, white people ain't hardly going to come to your house and do anything in and around your house, inside, outside, anyway, as far as they're concerned, a black person's house. And I have found out that once you hire one non-white black person and that experience was a good experience, you can go to them to ask, let's say if that person was the person who painted your house, and they can probably tell you some other person that can do something else within or outside of your house. I found that out. Whether it's a plumber, the only thing I haven't figured out yet to find a black person that can redo the roof. And it's not just your house or your yard. Also, when it comes to legal matters, the idea of finding an attorney, non-white, black attorney, for whatever your legal matters are, as well as your body itself. That becomes the place of employment, I guess. A doctor, as far as that's concerned. And there's means to do that now, and you can see on who you're hiring from that standpoint. And once again, I emphasize that improves on battling against workplace racism when that black person who is looking for hire is hired by another non-white black person, and especially if it becomes a quality relationship, meaning that you were satisfied with their work, and vice versa, they were satisfied with the workplace, and those are basically my thoughts. What gave me that idea was I was at my mother's house, and had a knock on the door. Not a knock on the door, but the doorbell rung, and at the door was a highly professional looking, clean cut, non-white black male, and he had typical insecticide canister, and he was coming to spray. Now I didn't know who he was so I had to call my sister, who's basically in charge of things at my mother's house, and she gave me the okay. But I just noticed how professionally dressed he was. I looked out at his vehicle. It was brightly colored with colorful letterings and stuff. So it tells me he put a great deal of content into his work, his presentation and everything. And I quickly asked you, are you the proprietor of the business? And he said yes. I said, can I get a card from you in case I need some sort of exterminator to come by, that sort of thing. And I went straight to him and told him and said that I always look around for non-white people non-white black people to hire, and so I'll be calling you when I need the service. Just a thought. Hopefully I made some sense on that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Great suggestion. I think they have resources that can help folks do that. I know they have in cities, particularly cities where they have a higher population of black people. A lot of times they'll have catalogs and things that list directories that list black businesses, so you can just go through there and get, or take the whole directory. Sometimes you can buy it, or they give it away. That way you can have it, or you can just go through there when you need the service. You need an exterminator, or you need some painting, or whatever it is. You can go through and do exactly what retired firefighter suggested. I can say that I do know folks who tried to do that, because I think healthcare was mentioned, who tried to get a black pediatrician out here in Washington State, and they have had a very tough time. There are not a whole lot of them, and then they're avalanched. Really, really difficult time for parents out here anyway who were trying to get a black pediatrician to give them their business. It has been for months now. This is something that they've been researching for months, and it has been very, very difficult. So that's something, I guess if you figure out ways to solve that problem, it might be good to share that information as well.
I can imagine, because you talk about it all the time about the lack of non-white black people in the state of Washington.
Yep.
Let alone talking about doctors. That's all.
Absolutely, and that contributes to it as well, because it's not that many, and so then if they're trying to get a black doctor and it's not a whole lot of black doctors, then there you go. Other folks who dialed in who've got a hand up, if you had commentary that you wanted to share. Again, we will not be here for 3 hours today, because I'm going to hear Dr. Vanessa Grubbs at the top of the hour. So do not lollygag. If you have comments, suggestions, commentary on what people have shared thus far, go ahead and speak up now.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening, guys. Good evening to the call. So everybody's having a good evening. I'll be brief and try to do my best to be concise. I'm actually going to share some workplace racism from a good friend of mine. I'll just try to abbreviate as much as possible. Non-white female, real estate sales. Her and I were having a discussion maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I had assumed that she had won an award just based upon her numbers. Her and I, we talk pretty frequently. And she said, "Oh, no, I've never told you that story, that I didn't win that award." And I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, I had the most units and everything of that nature, most sales, and we're at the award ceremony. The whole room is looking at me thinking I'm going to win this award, and they gave it to this white male." And I said, "Oh, did he have more sales than you?" And she said, "No, he had more community service." And I started laughing. She was very hot about this, obviously. But I just started laughing. So I said, "Wait, we're, just to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly," I said, "we're in finances, real estate sales. This guy had less sales than you did, but they gave him the award because he had more community service." And she said, "Yep." And I said, "Man, white people will do the tackiest thing." And she said, "You're right. I never thought of it like that." I said, "Because, everybody in the room knew that you got the most sales, but they just gave it to the white guy anyway." So they did an investigation. They saw how this whole thing was rubbish, and next year they're going to try to do this year, because this happened a couple of months ago, beginning of the year, but this year she told me that they are going to change the whole selection process, but that's after they made sure that the black person didn't get the award. The next thing was, same person was, this person was selling real estate, giving advice, and this falls into anti-blackness, to where for some reason a black family was not taking her advice and how they should market or sell a property. And the black family, and I think this is helpful for a lot of people, the black family then says, "Well, you know what? We are no longer going to need your services." And they say, "Okay, fine." A week later, she drives up to pass the property, and she sees another person sign in the yard, and it's a white person. And the property is listed for less money. And what her and I were speaking of, and what I talk to a lot of black people is about with anti-blackness, is how easy it is for us just to assume that a black person, if something isn't going your way, the reason why, and this is literally what they said, the reason why it wasn't happening correctly is because I listed it with a black person, and if I just listed with a white person, this will make somebody buy my product. And it's unfortunate that happens, but in the system of racism, white supremacy, that happens pretty frequently. And the last thing I'll mention is at my job, I'm in the mortgage business. There's a new guy that the company hired, a white male suspected racist, and his job is just to come around and just do business development. And one of the interesting things that I noticed when he came to our office today was he was like, "Oh, I have no background." And I was like, "Oh, in finance?" He's like, "No, I've done medical sales, but he said, me and all the mortgage guys, we just run in the same crowd." And I'm sure it's a very well-paying position. He gets to go around, shake hands and kiss babies. But I'm sitting there thinking there are a lot of non-white people. I've seen articles that have degrees that are not working. And just because this white guy is running around with the experience, not experience in finances, but just knows the right people, he's all of a sudden qualified to do business development in a field that he doesn't know anything about. And that was acknowledged by the guy that runs the company. He was like, "Well, everybody just knows this guy. He's smart. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's just hire him because he's a white guy that's been around for a long time." So just a few observations that I've noticed, and I'll mute my line. Thanks, guys.
Wow. That second one, that is the result of racism, white supremacy, non-white people, black people. It's not just black people, non-white people in total, thinking that things will be better if we just get a white person. They will be able to come in and save us and solve the problem. Like, that is tragic result, tragic consequence of the system of white supremacy. And I have heard that a number of times where non-white people had that way of thinking. I think there's even an old television program where the black people, they didn't want a black doctor, they wanted a white doctor for the same logic. With the last one, and that happens all the time too in the workplace, where you have tons of white people where they are not qualified for the job that they have, and we've had a ton of people who've called in. That's almost cliche in the system of white supremacy, where they don't even have to be qualified, and they can get the job just because being classified as white, that alone can be more than enough to tip your resume over the balance. You don't have to have it. In fact, I think we had some people who told us there were white people who went in, applied for a job that they knew they had none of the credentials for at all, like no experience, nothing, just applied. I said that to me, I think is standard, where I as a white person expect that I can get this job when I know from the very beginning I have no idea to do any of this, but I think I can get it just because, hey, I am white and I'm not ignorant about that. We had one person who wrote in, they had suggestions to give, they wanted suggestions. I wanted to make sure I got that in before we run out of time at the end of the hour. The person wrote, non-white male, 3 racist suspects thought I wasn't listening to their conversation. However, they were in a storage container in which it amplified their voices, so I heard the one racist suspect share a story about some sea lion at a park being fed, and the one racist suspect said to the other 2 that a younger gook was feeding the sea lion and was pulled underwater. Then the other 2 started laughing and talking with an Asian accent. Then, when they walked by me, all 3 said, "Good morning, brother." Funny how whenever you listen to your broadcast and you ask the guest about have they told or heard racist jokes, they get amnesia. I too have found that funny. Second observation, 3 racist suspects from Portugal are having what I perceive to be a heated conversation in their native tongue, so I withdrew myself from them. Then one of them came up to me and said, "Do you watch football, soccer?" My reply was no. Then he proceeds to say that they always get in heated conversations about that sport. So I quickly withdrew myself from them, and out of the corner of my eye I saw the one finger the other, to which he jumped and started to smile at the other. They made a quick glance to see if I saw, but if I saw them, but I kept looking in the opposite direction. Lastly, the Irish white man that is the fairest of them all keeps trying to make conversation with me by using slang like "how's it going in the hood" and "for sizzle." I took notice that when he engages me in conversation, he likes to talk over me when I'm trying to talk. I also noticed that when he finished talking, he pulls out his phone and then leaves. Not sure why, but he might be recording the conversation. Wow. Any suggestions? I'm not sure which vignette they're asking for suggestions. I'm thinking maybe the last one. You can clarify if you wanted commentary on the first ones. If it's the last one, with the slang and what have you, if you want to ask, sizzle. What does sizzle mean? I've never. Are you talking about cooking something when the meat is like sizzling on the? Is that what you're saying? You could ask questions. You could say nothing. I'm always a big advocate of often, nothing need be said. Some of the times they just want to get a response from you anyway. So if you don't say anything, you don't respond at all, you just keep going about your business, they'll stop doing some of that anyway. It's kind of, personal choice how you want to deal with that point of it. Now, if you have reason to suspect that he could be recording you with his phone, you could ask. I don't know which state you're in, so, if they have laws on that sort of thing, you could ask. You could, as I said earlier, I just take the position that I'm being recorded regardless, whether they got, cameras on the wall or their cell phone or whatever it is. I just take that position anyway, so it doesn't make me any difference. I'm going to talk like I'm being recorded, so no problem. Everybody, let's all pull out our phone and record, and I'm just going to continue to conduct business per normal. You could take it that route. A lot of different ways that you could go with that as well. I don't recall the exact type of setting, what type of office makeup you got here, what your rules and regulations are in terms of what's permissible behavior there. That might factor in. But did folks, if it's the last situation with this boss that's making these, I guess, tacky slang in conversation, hood and for sizzle, and then concerned that he might be recording conversations, any suggestions for how folks would deal with this?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. This is Ken Steele, and I am reporting from Chino, California. And the previous, I wanted to comment on the caller from the UK on her situation. I was really moved by her report this week, and I would suggest to her to take her employer up on their offer to take time off, and in that time I would spruce up my LinkedIn profile and update my resume and begin the search for new work, and simultaneously I would also be looking for a lawyer. If you are planning on escalating this to involve law enforcement, chances are you may want to also, you may have been in a situation where you need a lawyer to best handle what is to come, because it sounds like they're preparing to terminate you. And it sounds like you are not doing so well in this environment. And I also recommend getting your diagnostics looked at, just your vital signs, your blood pressure, most importantly, because I know that when I'm in hostile work environment, one of the primary things that's affected is my blood pressure, and too much of that can kill you. One of my doctors told me, if your blood pressure gets to a certain level and it stays there, or it sort of fluctuates around there, and you're constantly exposed to that level of stress, you will die prematurely. So, I just recommend that you take your time off, and you use that time off very constructively. You're in a very delicate situation. I can already tell, because you're so affected, and take that seriously. And real quick, I just wanted to talk about a workplace racism situation that occurred with me yesterday. I was in a comedy environment. I was in a bar that was hosting an open mic last for one of my shows, and there was a party of suspected white supremacists that were sitting off to the side, and they were not comedians, which is, you definitely want what they call civilians in attendance, but at the same time, it's kind of unusual to have a group that rolling that heavy on a Wednesday night in this environment. So one of the comedians began to do their set, and immediately, they were being very disrespectful, talking throughout the set, and at one point, the comedian just said, "All right, everybody, we're just going to stop talking and look at these guys for a few seconds and see what happens." And he stopped. Everybody stopped talking. The whole place went silent, and we were all looking at them. And just having all of those non-white eyes gazing upon them, just that alone stopped them dead in their tracks. They were very moved, and then I guess some comments about the fact that their faces were turning red and everything like that were made, and apparently that made them even more upset, and eventually they were so moved that they started cussing out one of the performers, and then they started yelling at the room, and then they saw themselves out, and I thought that was very interesting because like I think I've noticed on a previous broadcast, in this market I have seen more I guess unstable type suspected racists just kind of operating out at night, and episodes like that kind of make me nervous because you never really know what these people have in store, and just that being that late at night, just the fact that we looked at them, it hurt their feelings so much. I don't know, it's just something that I noted. I think that they need to be watched very carefully, and just the fact that our gaze alone, our unified gaze, was enough to just kind of disarm them. I think that's one of the. I thought that was very profound, and that's good for the week. Thank you.
Right on. Nonviolent counter-racist action, just looking, was enough to get the job done. Since we are running down on time, again, I'm going upstairs to check out Dr. Vanessa Grubbs talk about her book, Interlaced Fingers, on the racial disparities, her term, in organ transplants. Did anybody have comments on the caller who wrote in about being on the job and the, I guess, slang terms being used in kind of a crude manner by his supervisor, and then maybe he's using the cell phone to record things? We don't know. Did any folks have suggestions on that?
Minimize conflict by minimizing contact.
Okay, got one. Any other suggestions for the caller who wrote in?
Hi, Gus. Just in response to that. I mean, the fact is, if you think you're being recorded, then you just have to. I mean, I agree with the point about minimizing contact, but also just act as if you're being recorded. So, being very cautious about what you're saying, but also where the person is trying to trap you. I mean, you can use that situation to your own advantage, and make sure. And I'll give an example. When my head of team pulled me in last week to have a go at me, the whole thing just felt very weird, and I did think I was being recorded. So I was very honest about her treatment of me, her mistreatment of me. So if she was recording it, then what she has recorded is evidence that I've told her she's mistreating me. So she can then do what she wants with that recording. So, behave as if you're being recorded, basically. Because you can't control what they're going to do, because they're not going to obviously reveal to you that they're recording you. And just briefly, just thank you to all the callers for the concern. I am obviously looking for other jobs, thinking about the health situation. I mean, we haven't got time now, but I will sort of give broader context to some of the other things happening in the organisation. Because, as they say, a week is a long time in politics, and even though I am dealing with lots of difficulties, part of my rationale for wanting to move out of the team is to give me the space to apply for other jobs and to just not have to deal with some of the day-to-day terrorism. But there are other opportunities that are coming my way as well. So, but thank you for the concern. I'll mute my line, Gus.
All right, on. Did other
Can
folks?
I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. No, this is the caller from Florida. I was also wanting to comment on the caller in the UK. I hope you're, being able to manage during all the stress, because it is stressful having to just the day-to-day grind of having to navigate through the nonsense that they try and throw at us. But I did want to comment on, because I believe she was saying she was taking a leave of absence. And that's something that I had contemplated at one point in time, especially when it was brought to my attention, even though I already knew that I had like a lot of leave time. But I would caution Black people, usually when they, if they tell you something or suggest for you to take some leave time, just be mindful that a lot of times they use that to get you out of the situation or in that vicinity, so that way they can plan your replacement. Because I've seen a pattern of that since I've been with this company, that a lot of people, especially if they're Black or not, a non-white person, but I'm just saying Black people, a lot of Black employees, former employees of mine, that have gone on leave for whatever reason, it seems like they use that as a ploy to go ahead and find their replacement. They'll things like, they went on ahead and hired somebody because of such and such happened. They'll use any excuse. But I also want to caution people about social in regards to the workplace, because since a lot of things have died down for me, for the most part, I'm not saying that it's over because I haven't gotten a conclusion from anybody from corporate. But a few people have been asking me for my Facebook account, am I on Facebook and stuff like that. I usually always tell people I don't have a Facebook account, or I'm not on Facebook that much to where I don't even operate the account. My rule of thumb is, especially with employees that I work with, I don't have any employee have any access to my Facebook unless I'm no longer employed with that company. And even if such, that's still to my, I just make sure that I only have people that are like-minded. So just be mindful of stuff like that too, because they can use things like that to get back at you as well.
Absolutely. I know Dr. Cambon is a huge advocate of that in terms of not horsing around on social media and thinking that that's going to work out well for you in your job situation. I did want to make sure I included also the photograph. You'll see it on SoundCloud for this episode, or Facebook, the image that's used to publicize this event. It's on Twitter as well. 3 lawsuits allege racial discrimination in Charleston County schools. This is South Carolina. The same Charleston Dylan Roof, right? So Charleston was named the #1 city in the U.S., right? Best place to live. The school teachers have filed this lawsuit. Now, you already know Black children are being mistreated. That's at the top of it, that they're mistreating Black children in Charleston County School District. Continuing, it says the lawsuit filed within the past year also claims a pattern of discrimination against Black employees in the district, particularly Black women, who they say have been denied opportunities for advancement as administrators. All 3 plaintiffs are Black women, and all 3 say they were demoted, relocated, or put on professional improvement plans as retaliation for speaking out about the alleged discrimination. And I'll stop there. It goes on and gives more detail about how everybody, children, educators, all were mistreated. In fact, let me give one more. One of the educators in this suit, she says, one white teacher at St. John's told his students in 2012 that all of you could end up back in slavery because then President Barack Obama only had 4 years left in office. Later, while serving as assistant principal at Burke Middle High, one of the other she's one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. She said one white teacher consistently and constantly used profanity in a derogatory fashion towards Black students, but superiors told her not to discipline the teacher at all. Now, see, this is another one where the Black person is supposed to be in charge. Not really. That's why, going back to what was said earlier about who is to blame, who is culpable, who we should be most upset with for these things happening? Racist man, racist woman, racist child. Folks have any comments they wanted to get in the last couple minutes before we conclude? We miss anybody? Any final comments folks want to make sure they get in before we wrap up the program and Gus runs upstairs?
Gus, can I comment on the leave thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would agree with the last caller just about the caution. A couple of people have said similar things to me, and I do know in my organisation they have sometimes used people being on sick leave to get rid of them. That's partly why I've asked to be moved teams. If I do take leave, it will be part of my annual leave. That's not to say that I'm not worried about the health implications of what's going on, but I don't trust them. But, other people's circumstances might be different, and, you may get a bit more flexibility, but I do think there is a real need for caution there. I'll mute my line.
Absolutely. Well, Gus T, I'm going to run upstairs to hear Dr. Vanessa Grubbs. She's at Third Place Books. If we have listeners in Seattle, depending on where you are in the city, you can run to Lake Forest Park, Third Place Books, and you can hear Dr. Vanessa Grubbs discuss her book on racial disparities in organ transplants. We'll be here tomorrow. Gil Scott Heron, The Last Holiday. We are almost at the end, the second to last session, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be here Saturday for the compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be here for the global Sunday talk on racism, hopefully with Stacy joining us again. That'll be this Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 12 noon Pacific. If you have questions, problems, guest suggestions, you can't find something in the archives, drop us an email, untiljustice@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Hope we got some constructive info, and we'll be back in about 24 hours. Looking forward to the book presentation. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.